All right, guys, we'll be going over Sonic versus Shadow. I know a lot of people think that they aren't really close anymore for a multitude of reasons. We'll go over each instance and then we'll find out which one is actually superior. Um, so start over with Adventure 2. We know that Shadow and Sonic didn't really interact in the first instance. Like, oh, he used Chaos Control, and then, that's kind of it. Bro got arrested after that. But in the jungle, the Speed Encyclopedia does state that they were fighting to an implied equal extent. And even in the cutscene in the original game, we know that they were both breathing heavy, like panting and shit. So you can't really say that one got the advantage over the other. So we can say that's a stalemate. So that's one stalemate like going right now. So yeah. Um, Moving on to the final battle, which people already try to use that Shadow did boost against Sonic, and this is canonically backed up by the Speed Encyclopedia that Sonic did canonically win. But even in that same manual or whatever you want to call it, it is said that Sonic needed to use a fake Chaos Emerald to keep up to match Shadow's Chaos Control, which is people try to argue that this fight was somehow easy for Sonic, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because you're going to imply that Sonic in Adventure 2 was a gap above Shadow, even though you would have to argue that Sonic was a gap above Shadow in the final battle against the Bio Lizard, which doesn't make sense if they were both needed, right? So you can't really prove that. I don't think there's nothing really backing it up because even in the Speed Encyclopedia, they again say that Sonic needed a Chaos Control to match Shadow in like his speed. So that's another thing.
I just want to add one little bit. If it were like such a wide gap as everyone makes it to seem, then why didn't he just tell like Shadow, like he told Knuckles to just kind of hang back while they go fight the Bio Lizard, to even try and go super form? Because like we know that Knuckles is capable of going super. We see it in like the next game afterwards, and even in the classics. But like he just chooses not to do it because like it's not, like his fight, and he's probably not strong enough. So Shadow stepped up to the plate, and Sonic didn't even argue with him because he knew that since he went relative towards him the entire game, that they would be more than enough to try and deal with it.
We'll be going over the next game after that, which is Sonic Heroes, which people say that, oh, Team Sonic beat Team Shadow. But if I remember correctly, I don't think there was a decided victor. Like I remember all the teams go fight each other like in separate stories. Like they all still like just stalemate. I think like
Yeah.
I don't think the teams like actually got a decisive like strongest out of the three.
I think like everyone in Heroes is like relative besides like Team Amy or like the Chaotix. Like I think everyone else is like pretty relative. Yeah, I don't think anyone gaps in each other like at all.
Yeah. So there's still that. You do have to argue that you'd have to somehow like find a way to prove that. But yeah, again, that's still another game that doesn't prove Sonic is above Shadow, which is still something to keep in mind. Okay, now the next game we'll be going over is, if I remember correctly, Sonic Battle, which is that people argue that Sonic did beat Shadow, and that did happen. But Shadow verbatim states in a cutscene afterward that he was still weakened, that he wasn't at full power during that time. And then later on, Emerald, who fights Shadow, and Sonic think that Shadow has the better showing of the two.
Mhm.
So that's literally showing that Shadow has superiority over Sonic in that, or even you can even argue it's like outperforming, yeah, obviously outperforming there, but it's still something to like keep in mind that Sonic literally is verbatim stated to be outperformed by Shadow. That is kind of crazy, which most people won't really acknowledge that. But yeah, we'll be going over the next game after that, which is Sonic 06. I know a lot of people use these good old Prima guides to back up why Sonic is faster. But yeah, we'll go over that. The Prima guides state that Shadow is basically slower than his motorcycle. Like oh, his motorcycle is faster than Shadow on foot. But if you really look at it and even play the game, you'll notice that the motorcycle isn't a main thing of the game. It's not really a main like plot point or anything. It's more of a game mechanic. Like literally, it's just a vehicle you can ride. And even the same Prima Guide states that you can literally catch up to Eggman on foot. So it's again just more of an optional item. You can't really argue that it's consistent, that it's proven he's slower than the bike. I don't know how you would reach that argument. You would have to say that Sonic is slower than his car, which is really stupid. But yeah, I don't see a reason why the Prima Gods would have Sonic above Shadow to a crazy degree like this. It just seems ridiculous. And even Silver and Shadow, who can at least react to Sonic in combat, are stalemating. So it's again like they aren't a gap above each other because even even at the end of the game, they are all the only thing that can stop Solaris, and you have to go to past, present, and future. If one was significantly faster than the other, why would they even win against Solaris, right? There's like immediate big threat that was gonna like destroy everything. It just doesn't seem to make much sense.
And one more thing, like, can any of these guys that use the Prima Guide find another guide or manual that like substantiates or propagates the same idea or notion that Shadow isn't as fast as Sonic in 06 and is only like supplemental with his car or his vehicles? Because the Prima Guide is like the only guide that I've seen that even like gives that argument or makes that point. It's only in one guide. And I don't know why people run away with it like it's the gospel. Like, it's in one manual, one guide, and it's not even like consistent within itself. But like, yeah, I don't want to get too deep into it, but yeah, it's just malarkey.
Another thing about the guides, there's actually a guide that goes against the idea that they are one is a gap above the other, because there's one that just basically says equivalent ability, and it's Shadow and Sonic between each other. So it's like I don't think the guys are trying to imply that one is above the other, especially the Speed Encyclopedia. They just outright state that Shadow was Sonic's equal in speed and agility, if I remember correctly. That's still something to keep in mind. And that's like literally like years after the Sonic 06 Prima Guide, if you want to think that's like gospel for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, even Sega, like actual Sega, like the encyclopedia is just like disagree with that idea. And yeah, that's Sonic 06. But I guess we'll move on to Sonic Rivals, which people again try to use that Sonic just left Shadow in the dust in his story. But if you play Shadow's story, it shows that he left Sonic in the dust and he was nowhere to be seen after they raced. So it's again showing that they again are going high relative to each other. Which again, some people think that after Adventure 2, Shadow just flops. He's a fraud. He's on Fraud Watch. He's an Emerald Merchant. You know, kind of interesting. But moving past Rivals,
That goes for 1 and 2, by the way. Like they fight in both games, and they're both extremely relative. So like, yeah, there's no insurmountable gap that he has in Rivals 1 to 2. Oh, well, Shadow lost the race in 1 because what is it, like Rouge is still a card at the end, and Eggman like makes a bet to him that if you beat him, that like he frees Rouge from the card, and like Shadow doesn't free him. Yeah, dude. Again, if we really look back at the cutscenes, like in I think it's like that junk stage, he has to beat Sonic to even like progress to find where Eggman even is, and then they both like together. They're like fighting with and against Eggman to see who can defeat him first to get information on what they want to find. So like, they're like extremely relative in that game. So it's just another like dumb point.
Okay, so yeah, even with the Rivals, they are still relative. All right, now Shadow / Sonic generations, you know, either way. But people try to bring up that Sonic beat Shadow, but the context is given to us in Shadow generations that Shadow purposely lost to give the fake emerald to Sonic and keep away the real Emerald, right? I don't know how people argue that this is a win for Sonic. There's nothing really proving that. Even before like Sonic knocks him out, they're going back and forth in speed. It's not really proving a superiority gap or anything in any category. So yeah.
Yeah, like I just want to add this too. It's like they, like you said, they go relative before the Doom powers even try to kick in and try to like take over Shadow's body. And I don't understand why this is like such a good like upscale or support Sonic over Shadow like massively. Like, okay, it's good that Sonic beat a Shadow that was trying to trick him into like giving him a fake Chaos Emerald, right? And he's like actively like fighting mental control over his mind and body, but he also is like trying to beat him. So you have like a mentally like, let's say, distracted Shadow who's not even trying to win per se. He's just trying to trick Sonic, and then Sonic, who's like determined to get the Chaos Emerald to save everything, beats him in a race. Like, I don't understand why that's anything impressive necessarily.
So past the generations, there are people that try to argue. Crossworlds implies that Sonic is above Shadow, using the good old, oh, if they weren't in cars, they'll be faster than everyone, like due to interviews. But this understanding doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if we already established that Shadow and Sonic are the gap above each other, why would they imply that Sonic is suddenly like way faster than everyone? It just seems like more of a generalization to even argue that. And nothing really backs up the idea that Sonic is such a gap above the rest, including like even Blaze, for example. It's just nothing really backing that up. So it just seems to like argue, it just seems to like only apply to those characters that we know are above or below Sonic, like massively below. Like Amy, Army, all those goofballs, right? Yeah, nothing in Crossworlds really implies that Sonic is above Shadow either. And even then, like, if you want to use like game stats, there's also the idea that they both have the same amount of speed. So yeah, 45 and just each stat. Blaze also has it. So it's like just seems to like imply that they're all the same speed. But hey, if you want to not use that, sure. But oh yeah, going back to Sonic Forces, which I did forget to talk about. People try to argue that the clones, like the clone instance of everyone like KOing each Shadow clone, just proves that he was now a gap below Sonic, which is weird because they also do the same thing for Metal Sonic. So you just like, you have someone that's also Sonic sequel just getting one-shotted by bums like Silver, Charmy, Rouge. Rouge is like one-shotting Shadow. Like, do you think this would actually work in like any other game? It just kind of makes the clones like more so inconsistent, especially when you follow like IDW, where immediately like issue 6, Shadow and Sonic are going high relative, and SPO and Vector and Charmy just can't react or perceive them. They're just going that fast. So yeah, even the clones don't really stick. Like, they aren't that strong in any other game or comic. It's just sad that you could argue that they were somehow high adapting, I guess, but that would also apply for Shadow himself, because he just easily one-shots his clones anyway. So it's just, yeah, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But yeah, nothing really helps Sonic in that instance, unless you want to use like, I guess, Infinite, but still. Afterwards, it just shows that they are still relative in the IDW comics, which, another instance, Shadow was nerfed in the Metal Virus arc because he was infected, right? And Sonic verbatim states that he isn't at 100% because he would have countered his attack, which is, again, another upskill for Shadow, because Sonic thinks that Shadow could easily counter his skill if he was actually aware of what he was doing. But even in that same issue, Shadow was able to react and even tag Sonic when he tries to attack him. So that's still showing that a nerf Shadow without his air boots, by the way. He can't use his air shoes because he's just really stupid, and he can still react to Sonic. That's ridiculous. Like, people try to argue that it's such a gap above, but nothing really proves it. It's insane. But even following that Metal Virus arc showing, we have the recent instance in that you showed it to. Shadow and Sonic are just stalemating. And this is with Sonic wanting an actual fight from Shadow. So you can't even argue that he's holding back. It's just them just stalemating for the entire time. So again, where's the gap that people are arguing? It's like it's just nothing supports this in any game that they are both in. It's just ridiculous. Like the only thing you can really say is that Sonic is above Shadow in Adventure 2, but even that wasn't the gap above. So still,
Right.
where's the gap thing? So yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous. They're obviously implying that they are equal. And Omega statement in Shadow Generations, I forgot to mention this. They said that they are equal in speed. Again, saying that they are equals. So it's just yeah, again, nothing that helps that idea. Nothing helps that idea that they are gap below or above. It's just yeah, it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, that's about it.